Welcome to another Good Eye podcast. My name's Jay Smack. Welcome to this first edition of the, I guess you could call it the Good Eye BLOGcast. Just because I trust the good taste and patience of the audience so intensely, implicitly, and sincerely, this is the first of perhaps many. I don't know. Maybe it's an experiment that will not be repeated. I'd love your thoughts. You can email me at j@jsmack.com. But I'm repurposing blog posts into audio blog posts. And what better place to do that than on this podcast platform? So let me get to it. This comes from a recent post that I posted on my website, jsmack.com, about AI and the advance of artificial intelligence, and specifically how it affects me as a voice actor. That's my primary vocation, voice actor, voiceover talent, whatever you want to call it. I have a lot of interests, which is why this podcast got started. But the thing that I do day to day is voiceover and audio production. My love for audio and audio production led me to produce podcasts, as well as my insatiable curiosity. I like talking to people smarter than I am and gleaning from them lessons and also stealing their knowledge for my benefit. So that leads me to this blog post, which is called Fear the Reaper, Not AI. And it was inspired by a post that strategic coach Dan Sullivan, that's what he calls himself, that's not my gloss on him, the strategic coach, Dan Sullivan, and he's got lots and lots of followers and content and books. That's how I found him, a book. My good friend Aaron Lee, who is a business coach himself, recommended a book to me by Dan Sullivan, which was also written, or I should say it was written by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who put Dan Sullivan's thoughts into book form. Now, Benjamin Hardy has his own canon of work as well, and I read his book, Willpower Does Not Work, a few years ago, and I found it fascinating. It's sort of a very realistic look at getting things done and willing things to be done and willing reality and bending it to your purposes does not work. You've got to put in the work. So at any rate, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan have worked together quite a bit. So when Aaron Lee suggested the book to me, I took it seriously and I read it. And the one I'm reading is called Who, Not How. And it advocates finding the right person for the job and hiring them to do it, which frees you up for other things. Opportunity cost, if you will. So at any rate, this post that I put up goes like this. A quote regarding AI by strategic coach Dan Sullivan from a recent email. Quote, AI won't replace people. People will be replaced by other people who use AI. And this quote gave me pause and helped me look at this issue from a different angle. As a human voice actor, I believe the threat of AI encroaching on businesses, vocations, and territory traditionally held by actual humans is real and must be taken seriously. But if you're in an industry that AIs digitalize or watching hungrily, because we can't help but ascribe animalistic traits to non-living things, can we? Then how can you take action with Sullivan's wise words ringing in your head? Ringing in your head in the form of a human voice, hopefully. Well, for starters, you can get with it, understand it, study it, use it, and get a feel for its reach. I'm talking about AI. Whether it's ChatGPT, synthetic voices, or transcription software, realize its potential and learn how you can capture what it offers to your benefit. Burgle the gold from its lair, to steal a Tolkien reference. The Hobbit specifically, even if that means a fuller understanding of what benefits AI brings as it relates to, in my case, and in the case of my fellow voice artists specifically, voice and voiceover technologies. Try to find out where that line leads and ends, and the benefits of decidedly and exclusively human contribution begins. AI's emotions, quote unquote, are algorithmic, not intuitive, not emotional, not empathetic, nor compassionate. While AI can offer speed and efficiency that no human can match, it does not tote with it the need for compensation, aside from a fee or a subscription. It will never call in sick or sue its employer for wrongful termination. The presence of AI should be a motivator. It should be a source of inspiration, a reminder to know yourself deeply and to lean into the aspects of yourself and your humanness that only you can bring. It's those aspects that will set you apart, not only from AI, but from everyone and everything else. That should be cause for celebration. I mean, if not, then just ignore it. Turn your back on it. Hope for the best. At your peril. Maybe it'll just go away. But what do I know? I'm only human. So, there are my thoughts on AI because there's a lot of it in the voiceover world. As a matter of fact, I just saw a post on social media of someone who has been working with a client for years. This client apparently represented as much as 60% of her annual income. And this client asked her several times, can we use your voice for AI? And I'll quickly step aside and say, you need quite a bit of actual voice examples with various inflections to mimic a human voice. The AI analyzes it, analyzes the cadence, the frequency, the pitch, all that, and eventually figures out how to reproduce that voice. That's what you hear when you go on Instagram and say, he told me not to call in sick, and yet I did anyway. You know, it's not a very faithful reproduction, but you get the idea. So, what I'm saying is that in order to do that, it takes work. And this voice actor, had refused, saying, this is my meal ticket. No, please do not use my voice for AI. And then she saw on their TikTok profile that they had ignored her and done that, exactly that. Made an AI representation of her voice. Now, this is going to open all sorts of potential for lawsuits, intellectual property infringement, NDA perhaps, and non-disclosure agreements. That's more intellectual property, but so this thing's just getting going, and you cannot ignore it. You have to address it. AI is great for some things. My daughter is actually in college right now, and she and her classmates were recently made aware in no uncertain terms that use of AI is expressly prohibited and considered cheating. And if a professor finds out that they have used AI to write papers, then they'll immediately be given a failing grade. Now, the line for that moves as well, probably very subtly. Like, can you use AI to have it create, say, a paper or an article or a paragraph, and then use that as a jumping off point for your own words to do the expressing? I don't know. Even that's a very slippery slope, so we'll see. But in the case of, this is like the assembly line when Henry Ford, his social sensibilities notwithstanding, but the guy revolutionized the Industrial Revolution with the assembly line and quickly put a lot of humans out of work. That's what happens as we advance our technologies. Technology replaces humans. It replaces the human element, the human factor, the human resource, if you will. And that's just going to happen, but we can figure our way through it. AI, I do not believe even remotely, that AI will ever in any form replace humans. And I mean literally. I think that's a great fear, though, that technology will get to a point that it realizes humans are obsolete. But I think what gives us job security is that nuance indeed, the human factor, the empathy, the gray area. Essentially, that's morality. You can have integrity and stances and moral fiber and character, but there's gray area in there for sure, and that's why the legal process takes so long and is so involved, because they want to make sure they get all that stuff right. They don't always get it right, but there's so many checks and balances that that they at least try to make sure that they're getting it right. So we'll have to do that with AI as well. We'll see. We'll see where it's going. I think also AI currently is very identifiable where it's being used, whether it's art. I don't like the art that's going around social media and other places where it looks like a realistic painting. It all looks the same. I guess AI could also learn to do abstract art. Of course it could, but again, it goes back to that human element. What's going through someone's brain, going on in their lives? What has contributed to their view of the world, and what connections are in their brains? That brings me to another point that I won't get into, but the fact that free will is a myth. I believe that free will is a myth. Yes, we can make decisions. We can decide to jump off a cliff or do a certain thing with our lives, or go against the grain, go against what everyone else is doing, go against whatever the hive mind is enticing them to do. But really, we are a product of our influences. And even though we can choose to do whatever we want, I believe that there is no free will, because our influences have brought me to this point. And whatever I do next is a product of that. I couldn't suddenly decide or choose to do heart surgery, because that would be stupid. I'm going to leave it there. Anyway, thanks for your time, attention, and intention. Jay@jsmack.com with any feedback. And if you'd like to have a conversation about something on the Good Eye podcast, get in touch. Always curious. We can choose to do and talk about whatever we want. Thanks for listening.